This is our eighth lecture. It's very much on the organizational cultural context. And when we look at organizational cultures in human service organizations, it's very important for us to see what are the basic social work attributes that we look around within the organization, how far and how well they preserve the integrity of social work concerns. So what are those? A concern, compassion, creativity, empathy, and certainly, uh, I guess, the way in which an organization itself carries on its activities. These are some of the most important things that we look around in human service organizations. Are they responding well to the client system? Do they innovate, create more opportunities for their client system? Are the teams happy within the organization? Are the workers staying there for a long time? Is there too much of turnaround? Turn is there Do you get a feeling that this is a people-centered organization? Does it convey stability? Are they very much a process-oriented organization which is around faithful processes, ethical processes? Are they very much outcome-oriented? Is it very bureaucratic, very detailed-oriented, too much of paperwork? Is there a client fatigue that you notice too much, too often? Does it convey to us this is a very innovative organization? Creativity and innovation at the focus. I think these are some of the more important indicators through which human service organizations respond. And again, in the context of change management, we've discussed how human service organizations respond. Human service organizations respond to the demand. Human service organizations respond to technological change. Human service organizations also respond to how the government changes its policies from time to time, because along with the policies come the opportunities to either participate more in social services sector, or possibly some of those sectors get a little restrained. Reformation comes up as a result of crunches in funding. So this is the way we will have to be looking around when we think about organizational culture. Some organizations can even be aggressive. Maybe private organizations are a lot more aggressive in comparison to the organizations which are very much in the social services sector. So let me try and explain how we see this. Often cultural competencies are used in the context of ethnicity and multiculturalism. However, this is a term that can be used in organizational context as well. Being culturally competent entails acknowledging that organizations are both a part of overall social culture and also constantly producing new cultures within. So if that is what is the beginning or the overview of our lecture, so what do these cultures then involve? Any culture, even sociologically, we have always spoken about a culture as being one which has got values, norms, beliefs, and so on and so forth. Now, these meanings generally are frequently shared, but they can also be contested within an organization. Some organizations look very, very friendly. Not only do they appear friendly, but are very friendly. Some organizations have, very little space at the reception level. When people come around, they do not look very friendly. Maybe they do not look friendly for children. And there are some community organizations which, as soon as you go in, you find there's a little bit of a play center. When clients come along with their children, the clients' children can be very, very busy. So it's the image of the organization which also conveys the culture that we are looking at. From an anthropological standpoint of view, Jones and May define organizational culture as what it means to be part of an organization. Organization culture is also defined in a different way. The set of values, norms, and guiding beliefs and understanding that are shared by members of the organization. Are these things providing an identity? That is a question. Which organizations provide you a very clear identity? Red Cross. What does that convey to you? Red Cross conveys to you humanitarian response in any crisis, fire, floods, humanitarian assistance during, when refugees come into the country, or during war, during any other natural disaster. Of course, Red Cross probably is not the only organization. There are many other organizations which convey to you a set of values and a guiding belief about humanitarian orientation. But certainly, that's one of those prime examples that comes up when we talk about humanitarian orientation. Now, what is an organizational culture? Once again, it's shared meaning, shared symbols. How was the organization started? Why do people talk about an organization being, anything connected with uh, a particular founder, a charity organization, the stories around that, the rights around that, the language, the artifacts? This is what exactly which I've spoken before. So while organizations are influenced by larger culture, they also create their own culture. Now, what do we mean by larger culture? What was that larger culture about? The politics, the federal and state relationships, the overarching changes in the world in terms of what could be welfare and what probably will be cut down in welfare. At this point of time, during COVID-19, we've been seeing um, a range of philanthropic approaches. Countries which cannot afford to get vaccines, we seem to be donating that. We ourselves don't seem to be having enough stock at some point of time, but then we replenish that by buying those stocks from other countries. In addition to that, I think the overarching ideas that organization cultures convey to us is how well they're grounded, how well they're responding, and how well they seem to be able to influence, get a little more from the from society, from societal resources. So from that perspective, culture ought not to be seen as a static one, but more like a fluid one, where there is always something that comes from outside into the organization, and likewise something from inside the organization can also go out to outside of the organization. So what are those levels? There are two levels. One is called the overt and visible level, and the other one, of course, is called the covert and underlying depth and breadth of the organization. So let's look at this in a little more depth. So what's within the organization? Within the organization is its resources. Within the organization is a kind of philosophies. Within the organization is the kind of people that they are there. And visible, of course, is how well it presents, what are the activities that they do, how well they are received. So you've got to be matching. So performance of an organization, whenever it is evaluated and recognized, it is associated with what goes in and what comes out. Performance and recognition, it becomes public relations. So what does an organization culture provide? It provides a security, it provides an identity, it provides an integration with the objectives of the organization. So people need to feel secure, people need to feel that they are cared for, and people also need to feel that there is an ideal integration between what it says, what it would do, and what it is capable of doing. Let's move on and look at a few more slides. Culture is not distinct from people in an organization. That is true. When you join an organization, people always tell you, oh, this organization is all about being smart, being elegant, being up to date with knowledge, being able to give the clients what they require. And then, of course, if we don't have it immediately, to let them know, we look forward to serving them as soon as possible. So that's a kind of a commercial appeal or a sales appeal with which an organization responds. Quickness, transparency, ASAP approach. Then, of course, there are organizations which are co-creating and conveying and carrying. What a beautiful way of what does co-creating mean? Co-creating means you create the reality of service along with your clients, along with their meanings, along with their happiness, along with their sagas. So it's seen as a group phenomenon because it is based on a shared meaning. There are frequently competing subcultures among groups within the organization, each with a varying degree of influence. Surely, we must have that. There must be kind of a competition. Competition at the same meaning. We want to give you the best strategic plan. We want to give you the best logistic project planning framework. We would like to give you tools with which you can write your case management notes in a good way. So all these are driven as projects from an IT perspective. All these are driven as projects from a records keeping perspective. All these are given from the perspective of ensuring that the organization moves towards an outcome which is satisfying, an outcome which can be recorded, an outcome that can be seen by people and acknowledge that yes, we did receive something. You know, you empathize, you counsel, you listen to a narrative of somebody. Now, what should happen at the end? Some notes, something with that we write, which the client is also happy to note at some point of time, should he ask under freedom of information, what has been written about me? So it's important for us to carry a message through the organization. A, we are transparent. B, we are recording what is being said. C, we will take your consent before recording. D, it is important for us to record. Why? Because should something happen to whatever decisions that I have made today, and some other new worker comes up tomorrow, he should be in a position to see what can be done. So organizational structures, processes, history that shape the environment and also are shaped by the environment provide us that opportunity to look at culture. Cultural competence is defined as the ability to consciously and strategically relate to the cultural system of the organization. Well said. Now, what is that consciousness that is being talked about? Consciousness means a deliberate, sustainable way by which You can talk through the organization, through the objectives, relate to them, and in fact, turn them into actions. It aids in comprehending the complexities and resistance to change. Johnson may propose 4 levels of cultural competency development, and that's about personal, group, consumers, and organizations. So, what are those personal, group, consumers, organizational perspectives? Personal would basically take us to the individuals who are working in the organization. Group again will take us to the teams, the groups that we are serving. Consumers, of course, very clearly is an indication that it is around consumers or the client systems and the organization itself. So the competency cycle that we would want, which is about the culture that needs to be expressed in all these 4 areas. And that is when you can expect the organizational, individuals to be more and more or less showing their prowess or understanding of the organization itself. The next diagram that I intend addressing is about the profile of an organization. I think I've said that a little bit in the initial stages, but we need to spend a little more time on that. What is a team-oriented organization? A team-oriented organization is one which is in a position to work through all its activities through a democratic process, through discussion, either through a transdisciplinary, interdisciplinary approach that they might have. And they always have a bit of a backup plan, someone or the other who can, you know, um, back it up just in case somebody has gone on leave. There is enough knowledge, there is enough narrative within the team in order to understand the clients and their perspectives. There are organizations which are detail oriented, as we talked about it before, and there are also um, more or less stable oriented. I would recommend you to write down that particular website and have a read of that article, which is very much present on the internet, and might give you an idea in terms of how there are other there are other materials which are parallelly available to us to read. So that particular article, which from where the diagram has been taken in, talks about innovative cultures or organization, aggressive cultures organization, outcome-oriented organizations, stable culture organizations, and people centers. All those 7 aspects are very clearly and kind of well defined. Although this comes from a very commercial orientation, it still has applicability to social service organizations, and I would recommend you, if you have time, to look at that as well. Now, developing, depending on what is most emphasized within the organization, culture can be understood in terms of 7 different cultural dimensions, as I've put it up in the diagram. Innovative cultures, for example, are adaptable and flexible, and they experiment with new ideas, whereas stable cultures are predictable and rule-oriented. Now, what could be a stable culture organization in Australian context? Centrelink, very clearly, because you don't expect great innovation from them. Maybe in terms of their their capability of checking on who is a genuine user of Centrelink and who possibly could be abusing. That's an area where some innovation might have come through. Some expectations have been generated that everybody can't get through the Centrelink maze and everybody can't get through satisfy the expectations of Centrelink in order to qualify for unemployment relief or disability pension or whatever the case may be. So there are those ideas that one needs to kind of understand that shows to us what it is about. And there are also bureaucratic, strong cultures. They can be an asset or they can also be a liability for a company. But they can be difficult to change, and they're always within such organizations, subcultures, countercultures, and those can be difficult to manage in organizations. So that's about a very short introduction to organizational culture. Now I know that we are heading towards the assignment, and I intend talking about the assignment. Some of you have already started writing to me emails as to am I all right on taking this example and am I all right on taking the, another school of thought. Um, Briefly, I think if I were to talk about that organization, it's an organization which is changing. It's an organization in a flux. Its culture will change. So you will need to look at that. You will need to look at what happens to individuals, what happens to management, and some of those questions. And hope this little introduction was useful on the organizational culture. And thank you.